Hi guys. Today I just today and yesterday I've just rewatched The Incredible Hulk from 2008. My gosh, it's one hell of a great film. So much better than what we've been getting out of Hollywood today lately. And I'm not just talking story-wise, but quality-wise as well. On the not just the story, but the VFX. I mean, if you go back to the late 2000s and compare it to the films we've been getting afterwards, since Disney bought Marvel from Paramount, you could tell just how much greatness had been left behind since this shift began. And now I'm going to bring up this pic, and now I'm going to give you guys my review of the film and how it's the number one Hulk solo movie to ever watch. As you all know, as you all know, the Incredible Hulk, does start with an origin flashback of how Bruce Banner became the Hulk. He it was a he was doing he was doing well he was doing he was doing experiments for the military which he conducted on himself, and after a lab accident he 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 took off into straight into Brazil for the next few years. He kept himself in hiding while staying in contact with someone called Mr. Blue, while going by the alias of Mr. Green. He has been delivering him samples of his blood once in a while through the International Postal Service. He was working in a factory down in Brazil where a sample of his blood suddenly falls into one of the glass bottles of the drinks he was doing maintenances on the machines for. Soon, soon enough, when General Thunderbolt Ross tracked him, and the U.S. military in Virginia tracked him there, he contacts a Russian-born British Marine called Emil Blonsky, who comes to help aid and assist Ross's Hulkbuster units. And as soon as he became one of them, Blonsky led the ground raid down into Brazil in search of Bruce Banner. From there, Bruce was well aware that who spent months without incident keeping the Hulk contained within himself, and while looking to find ways, while in search for a cure, he was aware that he was going to get caught at some point. So he took off, made sure that one of his co-workers he was with, understood that he meant no harm, while making sure they kept quiet as he took off, as he takes off into the city, being chased by Ross's Hulkbuster units on the rooftops of the Pagala. Yeah, I'm sure you guys know what a Pagala is. Yeah, Brazil. It's quite a maze down there for a country that is second or third world. But as soon as you guys come to where, as soon as you, as we see Bruce come down from the rooftop from the rooftops of the building, he runs into three guys that had problems with him at the drink plant. They chase after him and are eventually joined by a fourth. Emil Blonsky and Ross's units pursued them. As soon as they got to the factory, the four goons, the four locals who have been chasing Bruce, start to beat him up, causing him to lose control of his aggression, unleashing the Hulk. The Hulk ends up one of the guys one of his four Brazilian pursuers gets gets taken out by a trinked out by Ross's men. The Hulk kills that same punk who harassed him, and then kills another while leaving the fat one to escape. Pardon me, but it's what we saw in the movie. Then the Hulk engages Blonsky and Ross's units. After taking them down and killing most of them, Blonsky got a good look at the Incredible Hulk, knew that he was not a gorilla. He was able to get clear from a barrage from. He was able to get clear from the Hulk hurling a forklift truck at him before the Hulk himself picked up another piece of machinery to break a hole through the wall and escape. Yeah, he wanted to be left alone, as he said he wanted back when he was hiding behind the smoke. Before he started charging and trampling those guys that were hunting him. Of course, Ross and Blonsky got hold of his equipment, and soon as Blonsky was brought back to Virginia, Ross explained to him explained to him about how Bruce became that big jolly green giant that he fought inside the factory. Ross introduces Blonsky to some imperfect super soldier serum. That's right, guys, super soldier serum. Not the perfect serum that was perfected by one of the scientists that got taken out by Red Skull's men to prevent from recreating the formula. Yeah. And while Blonsky was getting the super soldier enhancement, Bruce was making his way back to home starting from Guatemala, where he, as the Hulk, ended up at, then through Mexico, while working to get as much clothing as he can to replace the ones that were shredded during his transformation into Hulk. Yeah. You got to imagine quite the struggle that Bruce had to go through while making sure that making sure that not most of everyone knew of who he was and what he was involved in. And wow, he sure knew how to travel nonstop. And I bet you it was quite a long journey for him from Guatemala all the way back to Virginia, through the rocks, through the Smoky Mountains as well. As soon as he came back to Virginia, Bruce came across the same college that they performed the gamma enhancements on him in, and where Betty still works as a college professor or a college teacher, as you may notice. After reuniting with a former colleague of his someone called Stanley's, Bruce got a temporary part-time job there as a pizza delivery guy, delivering one of them to a security guard played by the famous Lou Ferrigno. Yep, the Incredible Hulk himself. The original Incredible Hulk, if I do say so myself, on television. Well, not the animation, though. Then he delivers the other box of pizza to a college pride who was played by Martin Starr. Then he gains access to one of Betty's Elizabeth Ross's computers in search of the data he needed to deliver to Mr. Blue, but it wasn't there, so he had to find a way. So they had to meet up with him at some point. Eventually, before taking off, he was finally spotted by Betty, who brings him back to her place to rest. She was really emotional when they were both emotional when they reunited a few years after that lab incident. And boy, the emotions get even more dramatic from here, don't it? Yeah. Wow. The following day, just before they were about to leave, Ross's General Thunderbolt Ross's military forces spotted him at the college where Bruce runs inside to try to get away from them. However, of course, when he was pinned down over on a walkway from both sides by the military, Blonsky was on the ground waiting to engage him. And soon as they fired gas canisters as soon as the troops fired gas canisters into the walkway where he was, Bruce tried to avoid succumbing to the gas. But when Betty tried to run up to his aid and got restrained by one of her father's troops. It caused Bruce to ungag himself and then start losing control, turning him into the Hulk. And soon as he comes out of the walkway, crashing through and getting the jump on the two guys that hit him with gas canisters, you could see that Blonsky and all the troops there were waiting for her, and her father wanted her to understand what they were dealing with out of Banner. Of course, it didn't change Betty's perception on Bruce. No, because she understands. Well, that next up as the troops started to engage the Hulk. The Hulk was able to counter back with every effort they had to take him down. And boy, does he know how to pack a wall up of such destruction or what? Soon as the battle intensifies, Ross sends Blonsky up to engage him while the latter himself was still fitted with the super soldier enhancement. And boy, was he the very first super soldier to be introduced into the MCU or what for us to see on the big screen? Anyway, soon as it was right after Blonsky kept them busy for a minute or two, he lures them over to two Humvees that were carrying large supersonic transmitters. And as soon as they started firing, they started to immobilize the Hulk, pinning him down, only for Betty to start screaming out towards him in agony, which is what got the Hulk to wake up in worries of losing her, that he was able to counter back, taking out one of the Humvees with one of the metal pieces of shrapnel that he ripped off a barrier in the earlier fight. But then when Blonsky starts taunting him, "Is that all you got?" it angered the Hulk into kicking him super hard into a tree. Lucky for Blonsky, he was still alive, but it really left him crippled for the time being. Then when a Russian attack chopper was brought to Ross's aid, started to fire on Hulk, Betty started running straight towards the danger, and the Hulk was worried that he had to protect her from getting hit, from getting caught in the crosshairs. Soon as he flings one of the metal pieces of shrapnel right at the chopper, he shields Betty to protect her from the explosion. Betty was lucky to be alive after that, while Hulk dramatically carries her in his arms. Furious at Ross for putting her in danger, in harm's way, takes off with her. Yeah. Then, of course, we know that Doc Samson, who was one of Betty's close associates, confronts her father, stating that he understands now as to why she doesn't talk much about him. Yeah, this is quite emotional film, guys. So much emotion you can see from the characters. It's quite emotional. If not the most emotional Marvel film ever. It is the most emotional Marvel Phase 1 movie I've seen by far. Yeah, very emotional. I mean, Hulk and Betty's connection. Yeah, he still had conscience. He still had a conscience. Yeah, protecting her from the lightning that was strike. He brought her far away from the area as possible, and they were both on the run. After sleeping that night, they woke up and Bruce was back to normal. And if you can see, they had to move quicker now over to New York City. Betty got him the purple jeans, those same purple sweats that Hulk originally wears in the comics. She bought him those. And of course, when it comes to how adrenaline can rise when people are heavily engaged in, making love and stuff, that Bruce could not risk it, because if he went above 200 on the heart rate, it would make him transform into Hulk. And yeah, he had to. Sorry if it disappointed you guys, but he knew that he didn't want to risk it. Yeah, quite emotional. Very emotional there. Yeah, I mean, if you all look at the Hulk, just how ripped he is, and that is, you know, he wouldn't want to risk that. Anyway, soon as Bruce sent his contact, Mr. Blue, a copy of the data that was provided to him by Betty, Ross and his military over at the Pentagon traced the message over back to Samuel Stearns in New York City, who was a college professor at a university that Bruce and Betty meet up with him at. Yeah. Yep, Samuel Stearns. The same Samuel Stearns we all know who becomes the leader in the comics, who is also the archenemy of the Hulk. Soon after the hours of college were up, Stearns brings Betty Ross, and Bruce Banner into his lab to start working on a cure for him. Soon as they strapped Bruce to the table, they had to run some tests while extracting samples of his large samples and quantities of samples of his blood into extra containers to automatically perfect an antidote. Stearns uses an electroshock thing on Bruce's head to trigger his transformation as the Hulk while they had him strapped to the gurney. Betty was able to get him to calm down as Stearns uses the serum on the Hulk, reverting him back to Bruce Banner. Wow. Yeah, very emotional, guys. So emotional. I mean, you got to imagine what kind of emotional trauma and experiences you would have to go through in a world like this. Whether you are a Hulk or someone who is close to him that still knows him best. Yeah. Well, I'm sure we all know what comes next, don't we? After inserting the antidote into Banner, Samuel Stearns, he was radically happy and amazed at how at Bruce's transformation as the Hulk. That he also revealed that he had also been doing some illegal experimentation with certain test subjects on behalf of Ross and the government. Bruce explains that the reason he could not let the military make more like him is they want to use more like his alter ego, the Hulk, as a weapon. Of course, Blonsky was feeling better and was itching for round 3, but when he overheard about Stearns' testings, he rushes right into the lab against the general's orders, shoves Betty out of the way, and demands the serum that he wants to become just like him. Then clearly this is a side effect of the super soldier serum that he was injected with earlier in the movie, causing such distilled aggression, just like you see how it drove Walker, who was the successor to Steve Rogers as Captain America, but temporarily in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. You know how the side effects of the super soldier serum in that show drove him over the edge with such aggression, right? Well, that's the same kind of serum that's driven Blonsky over the edge in this movie when it made him desperate to become more like the Hulk. After Bruce was taken into custody, we all know what comes next, fellas. Yep, Blonsky, now being so hell bent, craving for power, knocks out one of his superiors, a female major, leaving him and Stearns the only ones still conscious in the room, threatens him with a gun pointing at him, and wants Samuel Stearns to turn him into one just like the Hulk. Yeah, clearly Stearns had no choice but to do what he says. And so he did, by using one of the blood samples from Bruce's blood and injecting it into Blonsky. It did more than just turn him into a hulking giant. It made him somewhat more dangerous, something more monstrous, something more diabolical and life-threatening. And the results were indeed an abomination. And that's precisely who Emil Blonsky gets turned into with the Hulk's blood in him. Abomination. Not comic accurate color, skin color, but definitely the abomination. And even more badass, I have to admit, in this movie compared to how he was rendered to that of his comic accurate color scheme and with the with those ears of his showing being shaped like gills and the She-Hulk and showing stuff. Yeah, he Emil Blonsky as Abomination in the Incredible Hulk movie was given brown skin color, and as soon as the Hulk, as Samuel Stern started to becoming nervous at what he had helped to create, he was looking to fix it, but Blonsky knocked him out, exposing him to another one of the samples of the Hulk's blood, which dripped onto his head, which is turning him into a psychotically happy maniac called the Leader. Meanwhile, he started rampaging and taking on and killing some of his fellow Hulk. Meanwhile, the Abomination started taking out and killing some of his fellow military colleagues. The Hulkbuster units that were sent by Ross to guard the building. Soon as the Abomination bursts out of the building, he starts killing more police officers and more soldiers that were on the ground. He started going on a rampage. And then soon as Ross, his daughter, and Brett Banner were on a payroll, they saw the footage of the Abomination rampaging in the streets of Harlem. And man, was he capable of countering and sensing an attack from such long distance, wasn't he? When he caught that bazooka missile, shoved it into his own chest to withstand it, and then grabbing a driving taxi car, he lifts it up and shoves it at the troops, killing them all, along with the driver inside. And man, wow, he was such a mass murderer, I tell you that. And so, with no other option to contain the situation, Ross had no choice but to let Banner go, and in exchange for his freedom, Bruce goes back down, falls from the payroll and into the streets of Harlem to become where he finally and successfully retransforms into the Hulk. And with the Hulk now having focusing on Abomination as his main target, confronts the menace out on the streets, and the two begin their iconic clash. And God, wow, it was so heated. Man, you have got to admit, out of all the Marvel cinematic movie battles you've seen, this is by far one of the top 5. The number one battle of Marvel cinematic films you would ever come across to see would be Spider-Man's fight with Doc Ock and Spider-Man 2 on the train. Yeah, of how relentless the pacing and the fighting styles were compared to what else we've been getting. Yeah, soon as the Hulk started getting overpowered, well, hang on, guys. Hang on. All right, sorry, guys. I had an intermission, but now let's get back to where we're. After getting overpowered by Abomination, Hulk turns to a local police car, smashes it in half, and turns the front and the rear of the vehicle into boxing gloves he was able to counter a charging Abomination and starts beating the crap out of him with that police car until all the parts of the torn in half vehicle started coming apart every time he started bashing him. And man, that was cool. Seeing how he relentlessly started bashing and boxing the Abomination. Wow. And then he started to punch him with his own bare knuckles, which barely flinched Blonsky as he responded to him with the words, "Is that all you got?" The same words the same remarks he said to him earlier back in Virginia. But once the Hulk tries to lunge another fist at him, Abomination quickly spring kicks him through one of the buildings right in front of him. But before he could find him, Thunderbolt Ross and his guys in the Pavlo came to Hulk's aid by using a Gatling gun to engage the Abomination with, which we know could barely penetrate his skin, even with rapid fire bullets coming out. Yeah. As soon as Abomination started pursuing Ross in the Pavlo, Hulk regained consciousness, got up from a garbage bin that he was kicked onto, and then resumes pursuit of Abomination. He was lucky to stop him from getting to Ross in the chopper, but as soon as the two struggled, they ended up bringing the chopper down, crashing into the slums of Harlem. You know, where they have their final battle. Betty and her father, the General Ross, they both survived the crash, along with what's left of the pavement. Hulk was still conscious, but so was the Abomination when they both re-engaged in a straight-up fight. And gosh, man, the fights were quite amazing in this film, guys. I mean, you could tell that even though we've got plenty of action in some of the MCU movies since Disney picked it up, they really can't seem to comprehend with everything the first phase of the MCU had in store for us back then. Anyway, Abomination overpowers the Hulk again. And as soon as he starts taunting him and tells him that he should watch Betty die in the chopper, it really triggered another nerve to get the Hulk to counter back at his opponent. And man, was he able to get the jagged nail out of his chest and then brush off Abomination once he slammed him into one of the buildings. But soon as the sparks from the top rotor of the payload ended up lighting the leaking gasoline on fire, Hulk was quick enough to rush to the survivors' aid, and swiftly and immediately, thunder claps a huge gust of wind to put the fire out, saving not just Betty and her father, but also the Pavlo from being engulfed in the flames. Even if that also meant having the Pavlo tilt leftward to keep the sparks from reigniting the gas. But then, as soon as Abomination regains consciousness, he re-engages the Hulk once more, but with a chain flail. I don't know where he got the chains from, but boy, they were sure that thick enough to hit Hulk. And just before Blonsky could use them to kill Ross and his daughter, Hulk was able to get back up and with his right hands in the air, Hulk smash! Bam! Sorry if he creates a fissure in the ground to stop his opponent from hitting the chopper with those chains. And my gosh, he was sure able to beat him. Hulk rushes up to Abomination with the very same chains, and while restraining him, Abomination attempts to break free. But the Hulk was really just as relentless was much more relentless. But the Hulk, despite being shorter than Abomination, was much more relentless than Blonsky. Okay. that he even tried to kill him by strangling him with his own chains. Lucky for the Abomination, Betty was able to talk the Hulk out of killing him when she hollered at him to stop. And my oh my, did it really attract quite a crowd over in Harlem slums or what? As soon as Hulk spared Abomination, he kicks him over to Ross for the government to take into custody. And by getting one last look at Betty, Hulk kindly and softly takes a sample of her tears and says the words, Betty. Yeah, Betty. Then he flees into the night, out of the city. Wow. And later he flees across the continent over into Vancouver, Canada, where he goes into hiding once more. And I'm sure you guys all saw what was seen at the end of the film before the credits started rolling in. Yep. But it's a shame it wasn't enough to help the film do even more exponentially well at the box office than it already had back in 2008. I mean, despite the confusion of the people had comparing this as a sequel to that of the 2003 film, and with all the competition it faced a week after that, you have got to admit it. Universal Studios did a great job on this one. If not, it's their best superhero, if not their highest grossing film, it is their best VFX superhero movie in general. I mean, the VFX, the CGI, and the special effects in this movie are really rich in quality, and not just the story, guys. I mean, you obviously can. I mean, the late 2000s had that magic that's been gone since the 2010s. Yeah, such great, compelling story. Yeah, kind of. Well, the Hulk is one of the most popular and the most recognized, not just one of the most popular, but also one of the most recognizable superheroes in the Marvel comics. He's based. We all know what he. We are. I'm sure we know what he's based off. Where Stan Lee got the idea of creating the character in the comics from back in his day. But wow, this movie is such a mess. Such a beautiful work of art. Yeah, a real work of art. True magic in movie making, unlike everything else we got. And boy, this film should not have had its rights, so it should not have allowed Disney to impede it from having more standalone sequels in mind. And I gotta tell you, Paula Payton, despite being biracial, she would have made if Universal had bothered to just keep the film series going and keep it as an Elseworlds thing to the MCU, Paula Patton would have done a much better, more magnificent job than Tatiana Maslany in that botched up TV Disney Plus show we got back 2 years back. Yeah, and we would have also had villains like the UFOs, the Leader, heck, even Enclave and Bybeast, and maybe even a Brian Banner version of the Devil Hulk as well, if they were able to do 4. God, more than 20 years have gone by, and I am so disappointed with the film industry and how they treated Norton after this movie came out. I mean, finding it difficult for themselves to work with him is ridiculous. He was such a great actor. He has done the best Hulk in the live action films in any cinema. He and Ferrigno both. He way better than what we got. Not just out of Eric Bana from the 2003 film that was more of an experiment, but also way better, still number 1 above Mark Ruffalo's Hulk in MCU. Man, oh man. God, I wish Universal had just kept this movie part of an Elseworlds and for the Ruffalo's Hulk to be someone that they introduced with from scratch. Well, I give this movie 10 out of 10. You hear me, guys? 10 out of 10. And believe me, Abomination was definitely the main villain of this film because he is exactly the very reason to why Bruce was on the run from the military from the very start of the movie and why he did not want to risk having them get a hold of his samples because he knew about the dangers that would come upon it. And having Blonsky injected with super soldier serum ahead of his transformation into Abomination was a clear present example of it. Yeah, we all know what comes out of governments these days, folks. And I'm glad to have shared my review. I am Sergeant Garatina, and I hope you guys will have enjoyed my throwback review of the Incredible Hulk 2008 film, live action film. Edward Norton and Tim Roth did excellent as Hulk and Abomination, and both, well, Liv Taylor, despite being more than 10 years younger than Norton, and the late William Hurt, not being 100% exactly like Ross in the comics compared to similar, they both did great as well. Same with Tim Blake Nelson as Samuel Stearns. I mean, guys, this is incredible. This is a live action film that not only deserves a sequel, but definitely has the movie formula and potential that would have given fans a more satisfying live action cinematic franchise and not one that has been so generically watered down for various reasons. Anyway, be sure to, if you enjoyed my review, be sure to hit like, subscribe, and be sure to share this with others. And thank you guys. It is quite amazing. And I got to thank Universal and the people who worked on this movie a lot of credit. We are in their debt. Thank you guys. I'll see you later.